There are moments in life when silence says more than words ever could, and for Sean Diddy Combs, this silence is deafening. Once the face of hip-hop glory, surrounded by flashing lights, private jets, and endless applause, Diddy now finds himself in a far different world. A cold, quiet corner inside the walls of FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey. Early one gray morning, before the sun even broke the sky, the man once known for his loud lifestyle was quietly escorted out of the Metropolitan Detention Center, where he'd spent more than a year awaiting his fate. This wasn't a movie scene or a headline stunt. This was the slow turning of a page in the life of someone who once controlled music, culture, and millions of dreams. Fort Dix isn't the luxury world he once built around himself. It's a federal correctional facility meant for reflection, rehabilitation, and facing the reality that no fame or fortune can ever outshine accountability. The move came after endless legal exchanges, with his team insisting that Fort Dix would allow Diddy to not only stay closer to family, but also to get treatment for substance issues and receive more humane conditions than the strict and suffocating environment at the MDC. For a man who's always been surrounded by noise, cameras clicking, fans screaming, and deals being made, the quiet hum of prison life must now echo deeper than any beat he ever produced. But with every win like this transfer, there comes another storm following close behind, and this time it wasn't about music, reputation, or business. It was about the haunting past that keeps crawling back into the spotlight, no matter how far he tries to run from it. Diddy's world, as he once knew it, continues to unravel one piece at a time. Not long after the ink dried on his prison transfer papers, new legal troubles rose again. This time from a woman named Brianna Bongolan, a fashion designer and former associate of Cassie Ventura, whose testimony has reignited a storm of questions and pain. Her amended complaint landed in the court system just as Diddy was beginning his adjustment at Fort Dix, and it came with details more specific, more emotional, and more damaging than before. She spoke of moments of fear, of being held over a balcony in 2016, and of how Cassie had once texted a friend in the middle of the night about what she witnessed, scared and shaken. For an older generation watching all this unfold, it's not just another celebrity scandal. It feels like watching a man who had everything lose it piece by piece, not through one mistake, but through a pattern of choices that have finally caught up to him. The courts, the victims, and the public are now looking at not just the star, but the man behind the name, one who once inspired millions but now sits in reflection behind locked doors. His days at Fort Dix will be long and quiet, marked by routine instead of rhythm, solitude instead of spotlight. And while some may see this as justice served, others can't help but feel the sting of seeing another powerful figure crumble under the weight of his own empire. In the years to come, the civil lawsuits will continue to pile, the whispers will grow louder, and the man once called a legend will face the hardest question of all. When the fame fades and the lights go out, who is Sean Combs without the world calling his name? The pain, the silence, and the fall are now his own. Time inside those gray walls moves differently. Days stretch endlessly. Nights feel heavier. For Diddy, every morning at Fort Dix begins with the clang of a metal door instead of the sound of a studio beat. He's no longer surrounded by producers or bright lights, just men serving time, each one carrying their own story, their own regrets. And maybe now, for the first time in decades, he's forced to listen. To the quiet, to himself, to the weight of what's been lost. The transfer may have been considered a win by his legal team, but in truth, there's no victory in starting your day staring at concrete walls and ending it counting the hours until lights out. Fort Dix is safer than the MDC, yes, but it's still prison. The food is bland, the air thick with the scent of detergent and memory, and the noise of other men's sorrows never truly fades. Older folks watching this story unfold remember a time when Diddy seemed unstoppable. A symbol of drive, ambition, and what the American dream could look like for someone who came from nothing. But success built too fast and held too tightly can become its own kind of prison long before the bars appear. And now, with each passing day, the man who once threw million-dollar parties walks slowly across a worn-down yard, blending into the crowd of ordinary souls. Some say this is karma, others say it's mercy. But either way, it's a reckoning. Meanwhile, the outside world hasn't stopped moving. The lawsuits keep coming, one name after another, one claim after another. What was once just rumor has become a steady flood of paperwork, affidavits, and testimonies. Brianna Bongolan's amended complaint hit especially hard. It wasn't just the accusation, it was the new detail, the text messages, the dates, the personal memories now printed for the world to read. Those words told a story that can't easily be forgotten. Fear in the middle of the night, a friend pleading for help, and a pattern of pain that seemed to repeat itself again and again. For Diddy's supporters, it's painful to see his name written alongside so much suffering. For his critics, it's long overdue accountability. But for everyone watching, especially those who've lived long enough to see countless stars rise and fall, it's a reminder of how fragile power really is. The mighty do not always fall in one single crash. Sometimes they crumble slowly, piece by piece, as the truth finds its way to the surface. And with each new complaint, each new headline, another layer of his empire peels away. Even Judge Epstein, who once speculated Diddy might be free by now, has seen how unpredictable justice can be. The once celebrated mogul sits in his cell, reading letters from fans who still believe in him, and from others who just want him to say sorry. And perhaps in the stillness of night, he finally whispers those words, not to the world but to himself. For those of us watching from afar, this story stirs complicated emotions. There's sorrow for the young man who once dreamed big enough to change music forever, and disappointment for the grown man who let darkness creep into that dream. There's empathy for those who say they were hurt, and a quiet ache for anyone who's ever loved someone who lost their way. Age teaches us that no one is fully angel or devil. We're all a mix of choices, chances, and chapters we wish we could rewrite. And maybe that's what Diddy faces now. Not punishment, but a long, unending conversation with his own past. The years ahead will not be kind. Civil suits drain more than money, they drain spirit. Every new hearing, every reminder of the victims, will strip away another piece of the image he spent decades building. He'll have to learn how to live without the world's applause. And that might be the hardest sentence of all. Still, somewhere inside that fortress, there's a man who once inspired millions to dream big. Perhaps, in time, he'll remember what it felt like to believe in something pure again. For now, the gates of Fort Dix have closed, and the only sound left is the echo of what used to be. Fame fading into silence, pride giving way to reflection. And for those who've lived long enough to know that every story has its season, this moment feels like the final verse of a song that once ruled the world. When the world moves on, it does so quietly. The headlines fade, the reporters chase new stories, and the noise that once followed a man like Diddy turns into silence that feels almost too heavy to bear. Inside Fort Dix, time keeps marching on, breakfast, work detail, count time, lights out. For most inmates, the days blur into one another. But for Diddy, each day is a reminder of how far he's fallen. The echoes of his old life must play in his mind. The laughter of studio sessions, the applause of award nights, the sound of his name being shouted by crowds. But all that sound is now memory, and the man who once shaped culture is now shaped by confinement. Those who knew him speak of two Diddys. The dreamer who built an empire from nothing, and the one who lost himself in power and control. Maybe both were always there, fighting inside him. Maybe the silence of prison is the only place where the truth can finally be heard. For older viewers who've seen stars rise and fall over the decades, this isn't just another story about a celebrity. It's a mirror of life's hardest truth. You can gain the world and still lose yourself in the process. Outside those prison walls, the lawsuits still stack high like bricks of a tower built from sorrow. New names, new claims, new pain, each one adding another shadow to a legacy that once shone bright. But even as more allegations surface, there's a growing sense of exhaustion in the public. People are tired of the noise, tired of betrayal, tired of seeing hope in heroes who crumble. Yet for some, this is not a moment for judgment but reflection. They remember the young man who once stood on stage saying, "Can't stop, won't stop." And they wonder, when did that hunger to succeed turn into a hunger for control? Life has a way of humbling even the most powerful. And Diddy's story may be one of the clearest reminders that no amount of fame can protect a person from the weight of their own choices. He had homes across the world, but now one room defines his life. He once commanded an industry, but now he answers to correctional officers. The contrast is almost biblical, from luxury to loneliness, from power to penitence. And while many will argue whether he deserves forgiveness, only time and truth can decide that. As the curtain closes on this chapter, we're left with more questions than answers. Will Diddy ever find redemption? Will he ever apologize to those who say he caused them pain? Or will he spend these next years behind bars reliving the ghosts of his past, trying to understand how it all slipped away? For those of us watching, especially those who have lived long enough to know the power of humility, there's a bittersweet lesson here. Success without reflection is a fragile crown. Pride without compassion is a fall waiting to happen. And silence, though painful, can be the beginning of wisdom. Perhaps one day, long after the cameras have stopped rolling and the lawyers have gone home, Diddy will step outside those prison gates not as the superstar he once was, but as a man who finally understands what peace really means. Until then, the world watches quietly, a little sadder, a little wiser, remembering that no matter how far you rise, you are never too high to fall, and never too lost to be found again.